Oh, I'll be damned. I was on mute. I was on mute that whole time, man. Oh, oh, I'll be damned. I was on mute. I was on mute. I was on mute. I can't believe it. I was on mute. I can't believe it. I was on mute. I can't believe it. Oh, wow. We fell in a vortex. All right. Uh, my apologies for anybody who was listening for the first couple of seconds. I was on mute. I forgot to unmute the microphone. Oh, God. All right. So we only got one thing planned for the show tonight, and that is the NWA Implosion, the Nick Aldis, Billy Corgan beef, which has been raging all week. And I got a lot of thoughts on it. It's something I certainly would have done a video on anyway, but I decided to save it for here because I want to see how much of this crap was actually going to flow out of it. And from this whole thing, we got Taryn Terrell retired, Trevor Murdoch stuck his foot in it. It's been wild. All right, DMAC has a question. Do you still follow MLW? They're on a different app now. I absolutely have not been following MLW. I don't have Pro Wrestling TV. You know, I probably should get it. I know I think it's still free, right? It's just that I don't have the app. I'm terrible about apps. I'll forget an app exists. It's easier for them to be on YouTube or something like that for me, because then I just have to go to another channel. But having to download a whole new app just to watch their show, I may do it though. But how many episodes have they had so far? What's good, man? Again, I apologize to everybody who was thinking I was a professional at this YouTube thing. Now I am not. For the first minute or so, I was on mute. So you said Michael Jackson didn't release Thriller. I heard he wasn't ready to go solo. Oh Lord, not yet. It's not time for Thriller yet. I think next week we do Thriller because next week is the week before the 30th. I think then the 30th is when Thriller came out, I believe. We'll just do it. Hell, unless I have something pops up, unless I'm smart enough and I go see Black Panther or something tomorrow, which I probably won't because I have no interest in seeing it. So I am not sure because what we're going to do on the Sunday show. I'm thinking the Sunday show. I don't know what we're going to do on the Sunday show. I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. Oh yeah, I've been watching Bleach, so I guess that's part of it. I'm still watching Inuyasha, so that's part of it. I got some new comics, that's part of it. So I guess that stuff, but I'm talking like a big subject that I can spend some time riffing on. I really don't have one. A lot of people are pushing me to go see Black Panther. We'll see if I actually do it or not. I'm actually far more interesting, and I want some pancakes tomorrow. I want pancakes tomorrow more than I want to see Black Panther. Was Sunday going to be my first impressions of Bleach? Yes. I'm on episode 24 of Bleach, actually. So TN Pyro is watching in Bleach with me. He's only on episode 8. Good luck. Good luck. That's just like wading through sand. But we get into the interesting parts, I think. All right. So we're 5 minutes in. I guess we got some people coming in. Battle Riot 4 was last week. Ep 1 just aired. Okay. I'll watch MLW probably tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow morning, or something like that. But I really just want some pancakes. I don't know what it is, man. Like, this is the second week in a row where on Friday I just want pancakes. I don't know why. It's like I'm pregnant or something like that. I just want weird shit. But I just really want some pancakes. But whatever. let's get started. All right, let's get started. Um, where did it all begin? Well, it began with out of nowhere. I guess you could say out of nowhere, even though it's not really out of nowhere. Nick Aldis decided he was going to quit the NWA. Um, that's it came to us as a surprise to nobody, if we're being honest, because Nick Aldis was replaced from the world title picture in like St. Louis. I forget what event that was. I think it was NWA 74 or was it 75? It's one of the two. I think he was supposed to be in the main event, and then he was replaced at the or maybe a couple of weeks out, and then out of nowhere, this past week, Nick Aldis had been on again, off again with Billy Corgan. And so finally he decided to call it a day. He was going to leave the NWA. I gave his notice and that he will be leaving on January the 1st. Then he was suspended from all live events immediately afterwards. So here's how it went. This was November the 7th. Nick Aldis has been suspended from the NWA according to an announcement that was released to PW Insider. The statement, which comes from NWA COO Joe Galli, reveals that Aldis' suspension will go into effect immediately and that he will not be present at Hard Times 3 pay-per-view or the coinciding TV tapings that are set to take place this weekend. Per PW Insider, pursuant to the recent comments made by Nick Aldis, the National Wrestling Alliance has suspended Aldis from the main roster, and effective immediately, Aldis will not appear for the Hard Times 3 pay-per-view and Revolution Rumble television tapings in New Orleans, Louisiana on November 12th, 2022 and November 13th, 2022. As such, the NWA reserves its right to comment on this matter at a later date. Joe Galli made it clear to PW Insider that the situation is not a wrestling angle. On November the 6th, Aldis revealed via his Instagram that he has given his notice to the NWA, that he would be a free agent on January the 1st, 2023. So here's what happened immediately after that. So after he was suspended, Nick Aldis tweeted out on November the 7th, also fans in NOLA, or New Orleans, Louisiana. Sorry to disappoint, but I was removed from the shows this weekend after giving my notice. I fully intend to fulfill my obligations to the audience, but unfortunately, the company doesn't seem to share the same values. Later, Billy Corgan made a comment about women's wrestling and whether they can wrestle NWA style and wrestle carry a pay-per-view. We're definitely going to get into this a little bit later too. But Nick Aldis then responded to this statement by saying, if some of you are wondering whether stuff like this factored into my decision to give my notice, you'd be correct. So, oh boy, it all boils down to Empower, doesn't it? It all boils down to Empower. Yes, it does. It all boils down to Empower. So, Billy Corgan goes on Busted Open Radio. So this was before I even knew what Billy Corgan said. Nick Aldis tweeted out, wait till he goes on Busted Open later this morning. I gave 5 years to the brand. I hope the other talent are paying attention, because if he will do this to me, he'll do it to anyone. All because I'm leaving and didn't like Gags the Gimp and social distancing matches. Then somebody said that after he made his comments, after Billy Corgan made his comments, Nick Aldis said, they never asked for the follow-up. Also, no coincidence that he goes on when Bubba is on, meaning Bubba Ray Dudley. So we're in an interesting space at this point in time where this guy has decided the guy who was the face of NWA, and you can't deny that. Even if you don't like the guy, he was indeed the face of NWA. He was the guy, pulling the cart for NWA. The 10 pounds of gold, everything. And NWA for the last several months, or even over a year, has gotten into some weird territory. It all started when I started seeing guys drinking blood on Power. I forget who the guy was because I didn't commit his name to memory. He's a job guy. And they were doing this thing with Father James Mitchell, which I figured was an isolated incident because it involved Father James Mitchell and doing these kinds of gimmicks. But now there's a gimp. There's literally a gimp on the roster, a guy in a leather suit with his mouth like zipped up. It's really gross. There was a social distancing match on a recent episode of Power. I think it was within the last couple of months. The mega push of Tyrus, when he was a TV champion for a long time, and then him being pushed up to the main event. He was even added to the most recent pay-per-view main event, Hard Times 3. He was even added to that main event. That kind of frustrated quite a few of the fans, people who were still hanging on to NWA. They were getting very frustrated by this whole thing with Tyrus. They hated that. And even me, I've fallen off. I have absolutely fallen off of NWA. I don't really even follow it anymore. I try to watch it. I'll have it on in background while I'm doing something else. I just have no interest in any of the talent. To be quite honest, if we're going to be honest, AEW raped NWA. They absolutely raped them. Eddie Kingston, Ricky Starks, Thunder Rosa. Man, they really did a lot of damage to NWA. I know the pandemic was the primary issue, but it was that pandemic, man, it really damaged NWA. Really damaged. They never came back from that. They never ever came back from that. But Billy Corgan still has faith in NWA, and he decided to retaliate against Nick Aldis, who was talking about the social distancing match and this kind of stuff, and how he doesn't like it, doesn't like the creative or anything like that, which was interesting. It was interesting. So here's part of what Billy Corgan said on Busted Open Radio. He says, Nick and I entered into a business relationship 5 years ago where we bet on one another, and that proved to be a good bet. Nick Aldis has been the highest paid talent in the NWA the entire time, without question. Nick knows that. Nick's had a lot of say, not only over the company, but also how he was booked. That's fine. That's all transparent. That's stuff we've talked about in the past. Why is a man who a week ago who emailed us and said, hey, thanks for everything you've done, I've kind of moved on, and we're like, cool, that's it. He gave his notice privately. We didn't do anything. Did we retaliate? Did we leak some rumor? Nick's this or that? No, we didn't say anything. We got shows booked. Nick's on the card. Nick's doing interviews, by the way, for the pay-per-view. Why is a guy who's so disgruntled doing interviews for the pay-per-view? We're in business, right? A couple of days ago, he does a video where he says, okay, I'm opting out of my contract or whatever. He says it publicly. I wouldn't do business that way, but it's his choice. I didn't like it. Okay, it's fine. He's leaving in 55 days or something like that, right? Just do your business and go on out the door. That's fine, and hopefully we'll do business down the road. Then he starts blasting the product. Now, I want to remind everybody, everything that he said, I've been hearing that stuff for years. It's not like I heard it and I got all sensitive. Oh my God, what is he saying? But ask yourself, why in a pay-per-view week with a talent who's leaving the company, does he decide to start blasting me and the product 55 days before he's out, and he can just go out and do whatever he wants to do? Why does he have to do that to the locker room? Why does he have to bury the product? And again, I've heard all this stuff privately for years. These are not new criticisms. He and I have battled about the product for years, and he's helped make the product behind the scenes better with those battles. So this is not a sensitive or reactionary thing. But how do I, as a leader of this company, allow a key talent, the most highly visible talent in the company, up until he opens his mouth and tells people he's leaving, blast the company? By the way, he's still under contract. He's still being paid. So we disinvite him. We say, hey, we don't want you to show up. We didn't take his money away. He's still being paid, but I can't have a guy like that show up, because what message does that send to the locker room? There's a lot of people in the locker room. They're not happy about this. They have to go on and do their job. Why is the focus not on Matt Cardona, Tyrus, or Trevor Murdoch, or Camille, or Kylan King, or Chelsea Green? The focus is on Nick Aldis, who, by the way, is not on the show anymore. It's not animosity. It's sort of why we are doing this. All right. So this is an interesting thing, because this is literally what I just said. You know, literally I just did this video when it comes to AEW about, if you're the star quarterback, you can't go blasting the team in interviews publicly. Now, I didn't hear any of the stuff that Nick Aldis is talking about. I'm sorry, that Billy Corgan is talking about. But I do know that the beef between these two has been going on for a few months. You know, and it's been pretty visible. Again, there's episodes of Power where Billy Corgan's on there talking about how much money Nick Aldis makes and how much authority he has over his product or whatever. And he doesn't understand why Nick Aldis is doing what he's doing. And Nick Aldis was criticizing the product on television, criticizing Billy Corgan in promos. And I thought it was a work. You know, it all seemed like a work to me. But apparently now it's not a work. But I don't disagree with what Billy Corgan said there. I see Billy Corgan saying something that makes sense to me. You know, it makes perfect sense to me. You wouldn't want that guy around either. Again, think about people other than just him. As much as Nick Aldis is a visible talent on the roster, it's a big problem when he is criticizing the talent, criticizing the storylines, and doing all this kind of stuff. So then here's another quote from Billy Corgan. He says, when a person goes scorched earth, where do you go back? When I was on here, Busted Open, a few months ago, I went off on Nick. We were working. That was an angle we were working, because all plans were Nick was going to stay with the company in 2023. So yeah, is it an original angle? Stone Cold and Mr. McMahon? No, but that's what we were going to do. We were going to pit against each other, and we talked about maybe I turn and be heel with him, and we talked about all sorts of scenarios for 2023. So when I was on here blasting Nick with his permission, I was going to blast, he was going to blast, so we started building up this heat. So part of what feeds into the story that's happening now is the work story. Everything's been going totally cool. And listen, he told me over and over again what he didn't like about the product. And I told him particularly what I like about the product, what I didn't like, what my reasons were, and basically said, if you don't like it, you can go. Obviously, or start your own wrestling company. This is the NWA. This is my company. I invest my time and my money and go away from my kids to work on the NWA as something I really care about. Okay? And that's it. It's all transparent. You know, I came on here and I tell you the truth. I'm very different that way. I'm very transparent. I would prefer that the last image you have of Nick Aldis in the NWA ring is his hand raised. I don't want to get into conspiratorial stuff like he didn't like the way it was being booked. Who cares? He didn't want to do business the right way. He went into business for himself, right? That's where we're at. Now we split the whole company in a position where we have to defend what? What are we defending? Nick Aldis doesn't like the NWA. Okay, let the people who are here, and it's a great card, let them go out and prove why he's wrong. That's it. It's not complicated. TN Pyro, what he's saying is that the stuff I was talking about earlier when they were dissing each other on TV, that was a work. Now it's a shoot. That's what he's saying. He said it was a work before, but now it's a shoot. Okay. So this is absolutely, this is a mess. This is a mess. You can't work with non-workers, man. Billy Corgan has never worked anything in his life. It's very odd. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's very odd that every time, and Billy Corgan talked about this, I think, in an interview, that all of his wrestling ventures basically end up kind of like NWA is ending up right now. You know, that's basically how how it all turned up. It just keep happening to him. So here's some more Billy Corgan stuff. He says, I think he's going to have a rough time outside of the NWA. Not as a wrestling talent, but I think you see the way he's dealing with this publicly. I can't imagine that any company is looking at this and thinking this is a good way to do business. But he was tied with me for 5 years. We did business for 5 years. I paid him a lot of money. Take your money, shake your hands, and go. Why the big ruckus? I think it belies a deeper insecurity that Nick believes he's a top guy. Okay, now we're going to see it. I wish him well. I invested in him because I believe he's a top guy. I was warned about Nick Aldis before I signed Nick Aldis. As long as I gave Nick Aldis what he wanted, Nick Aldis is a cheesecake and flowers. Now I'm meeting the Nick Aldis that I was warned about, that people in other companies warned me about before I signed Nick Aldis. Okay, if that makes me a dummy, I don't think so. I think it's been a good play overall. Does this leave a sour taste in my mouth? Of course. Why? Does he really want to bury the locker room? Does he really want to bury Trevor Murdoch and Matt Cardona and Tyrus? Does he really want to bury people that he does respect? Tom Latimer is Nick's best friend in the world. We have a match. Tom Latimer versus EC3. Does he want to bury that match too? Is that what's so embarrassing about the NWA? Tom Latimer versus EC3? Am I supposed to come out here and apologize? Hey, everybody, I'm so sorry. Tom Latimer versus EC3. I'm sorry to make you watch that. It's ridiculous. Now, he doesn't like a lot of the mid-card stuff. I grew up in a time where that kind of stuff was important in a different way, and I'm not here to defend it. I'm just saying if you look at my vision of wrestling, which not everybody agrees with, that's my bet. Let me tell you, when I'm in meetings with network executives, they like the program. I've been having a ton of meetings over the last 6 months with TV executives talking about the future of NWA. They like the program. They are not wrestling fans. My argument for years has been wrestling community. You have to appeal to non-wrestling fans to get the numbers back up. You cannot just appeal to hardcore fans that know where MJF buys his scarves, which I think is a great line at the end. That's an excellent line at the end. You can't just appeal to people who know where MJF gets his scarves. But here's the thing. NWA Power isn't just Tom Latimer versus EC3. Now, I don't hate that much. I don't hate that match. That match is actually okay. And I like the build for it. The build for it has been fine. But the problem has been the Judas stuff. It has been the Gimp stuff. It has been the Rolando Freeman midget guy who keeps beating Matt Cardona on TV. It's been that stuff. It's been a lot of dumb stuff that Billy Corgan has put on these NWA Power television shows that has been absolutely nonsense. I will be reviewing NWA Hard Times 3, by the way. I stopped doing reviews of Power because I don't really watch Power. I basically skim through the show now. I don't sit down and watch it anymore. But, I don't pay it that close attention anymore. I'll have it on in the background while I'm reading a comic book or something like that. But it's unfortunate, because NWA was something that I really enjoyed and I really liked. But if you follow this channel, the moment Trevor Murdoch became world champion again, I was kind of out of NWA at that point. I was like, that Trevor Murdoch versus Tyrus main event, abysmal. All right. That's one of the biggest slaps in the face. I would not watch that match on free TV. All right. I could not believe that they perpetrated that upon the American public. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. And the Gimp stuff is really a mess. I'm just floored by the Gimp shit. that GIMP stuff is just absolutely ridiculous. All right, so yes, Tyrus did wear the television belt on Fox News. It was very weird. Okay, now let's get to the meat of the matter. That's Billy Corgan's and his take on Nick Aldis, which I don't necessarily disagree with, because Nick Aldis, as the locker room leader, as the guy who wants to be the locker room leader, it's the CM Punk effect. You want to be the top guy, you have to act like the top guy. If you want to be the face of the company, you have to act like it. You cannot go out and start burying the product in public. You cannot do that. The moment you start doing that, you're going to have people want you out of the company, or they're not going to listen to you anymore. You lose your standing as a locker room leader. Jacoby Peter, I did see your comments, but I don't have time to get into that right now. I'm too scatterbrained. If I don't finish this shit while I'm doing it right now, it ain't gonna get done. All right. So Billy Corgan starts talking about Empower. Now, this is where we get to the meat of the matter of what really happened between Nick Aldis and Billy Corgan. So Steve Fall of 10 Count had an interview with Billy Corgan. And Billy Corgan said this: "I'm really intrigued by the interest in Empower. We continue to want to do it, and we continue to have discussions with other companies about working together to create a fresh Empower event. Last time I talked about it, I created some headlines because people took umbrage with the fact. In fact, I had Maria Kanellis. I've known Maria for many years, and I love Maria, but even Maria called me out saying something about we have women. Every company has the right to decide their level of standards. When you create a world-class event like Empower, and it was a world-class event, you have to set a very high standard of what you should expect. Of course, there are plenty of great professional wrestlers, women professional wrestlers in the world. Can they wrestle the NWA style? Can they carry a 3-hour pay-per-view? Can they move the case of women's wrestling, not just in wrestling, but in terms of international media forward? These are my concerns. Everybody has their own version of it. That's my version of it. And that's why I'm still on that. Until we can provide a world-class event with some of the best professional wrestlers in the world, in this case, females on the card, we won't do it. All this weird howling that goes on about it is very strange to me, because you're taking a positive and making a negative out of a positive. That's very weird to me. Why would you take a positive? By the way, we put Empower as the first night of a 2-night pay-per-view on an anniversary show, and it drew. People cared. What if it didn't, and people didn't care, and it did horrible numbers? What if the matches were bad? You create a high watermark. You do something beautiful, make a big statement, and somehow it turns into a weird negative where somehow I'm running from it. I'm not running from anything. I'm talking about my reasons for why we haven't done it yet. I continue to explore those opportunities. That's it. It's not more complicated than that. Now, on this comment here, he's saying, can they work the NWA style like it's WWE or some shit? Like I don't get it. I don't get it. For starters, he should have brought up to people, and I think this is where Billy Corgan was in defensive mode and he wasn't really thinking. There have been Empower episodes of Power. There have been Power episodes that were all women. So they didn't have a pay-per-view for the women, but they did have a television special that was for all the women. Now, he didn't mention that, but I remembered it. You know, there have been other female-centered shows. Like I think there was an NWA USA episode that was built around the women's tag team titles. So he's been featuring the women, but so many people have turned, because they don't really watch the show. They don't really watch the program. It's all politics for them. It's all public relations garbage. When he said that he has very high standards and can these women wrestle the NWA style? Can they carry a 3-hour pay-per-view? They got offended. They didn't say, yes, we could. They got offended. They got mad. And then they started, attacking him. Okay. So somebody brought up the women's 150, the PWI women's 150. He says, quote, there are a lot of great professional women wrestlers in the world, just like there are a lot of great male professional wrestlers. I don't agree with a lot of the rankings. There are a lot of people on that list that are very good, that are getting listed higher than their accomplishments. Is that a trendy thing? Flavor of the moment? That's not to bury anybody. My point is, I see people listed high up in those rankings, and I don't agree with that. That's not to bury those talents. I just don't agree. There are people on that list that could not headline WrestleMania, and there are people that could headline WrestleMania that aren't high on that list. What does that tell you? And then this is where he's going to really get into some shit. He says, we live in a culture now where we talk about things that are super important: diversity, empowerment, equality. It is the most disrespectful thing in the world to treat any class of people, no matter how you want to separate people, and I don't like to separate people, treat as if they need a leg up or they need a helping hand. It's the opposite. The whole concept of empowerment is to create opportunity. I'm going to give you this opportunity and you're going to kill it. We're not here to cheat code anybody forward. Women, I've been saying it for years. I said it in forums. The future of professional wrestling is women. The business has too long overlooked one of the biggest marketing aspects of what makes professional wrestling great. I was Nostradamus about that. I called it early. Now you're bringing a lot of people to the table who have not been in pro wrestling for the last 30 or so years. This is all great stuff. People want to make controversy out of it. At the end of the day, we're arguing about something that is great, not bad. That is it. This is awesome. It has to be awesome to keep making the case. If you're a fan, a casual fan, and you wander into an event like Empower, if you don't walk out of there feeling inspired, then you haven't done your job to make that fan, to make them come back and buy that t-shirt. That's the responsibility of the business. This is not the 1950s where we just throw anybody out there to make a spectacle. The women, traditionally, back in the day, were treated like spectacles. It wasn't taken seriously. Why do you think I bought the Mildred Burt belt? What Mildred Burt went through, mocked, humiliated, objectified, treated not like a serious pro athlete. She went on to draw more than most of the men in the business. And then they were grumpy about it. I'm a convert. I'm there. I've been there. I put my money where my mouth is. Anybody that wants to make hay out of that, they can do that all day. You try to run a world-class event again and again. That's what we're here to do. That's it. It's not any more complicated. You want to make it more complicated, have at it. Now, I absolutely, I disagree that the future of wrestling is women. I mean, come on. I mean, I think they have a place, of course. Even though I do get pegged and quite often called a misogynist, because I really don't care about women's wrestling. And quite frankly, I think we got too much of it as it is. But I understand. I understand that you want to have, more women featured on the product. I understand why you want more women featured on the product. And I understand that if you sign people, you want to use them. I don't see anything wrong with what Billy Corgan said. Outside of the future of professional wrestling is women. He says that he wants to have a great event. And he could do that last year because they had the talent, he had the money, he had help, which, I think he's going to talk about in a different quote. But this year he was being asked to do it all alone. And then he's saying that people are saying, look at the top 150. And that makes sense. But how many of those people do he really have access to? Like, when you look at all of these talents, these women's talents, is he going to fly in girls from Japan or Mexico to work in Power? Is that really what you're asking him to do? You're asking him to fly in like crazy Japanese female wrestlers for Empower? Like if he had that kind of money, wouldn't he just fly in the guys too? Like I don't know, man. Like I can see maybe he might be able to get one or two of them, but you can't build an entire 3-hour card around that. He doesn't have the resources. This is where wrestling fans have absolutely been, again, they've been acting like piranha on this subject. They've been floating around Billy Corgan, taking chunks out of him without really respecting that the man he is a multimillionaire for sure, but he still has to run this company on a budget. He can't spend more money than he's going to make on this. All right, he can't. He literally just cannot spend more money than he will make on this. He can't be flying girls in from Mexico, flying girls in from Japan, paying the girls who are in the United States what they feel like they're worth, and getting names that people will know. Like, can he possibly get, some big names for the show? Sure. No doubt he probably could get some big names for the show. Probably one or two. But how many of those bigger names are not already signed to either AEW or WWE? Very few of them. How many people are really going to move the needle without really, without that WWE or AEW credential? Not many, and this is just being realistic. It's being realistic. Realistically, you can't put Kylan King versus Camille as a main event of a pay-per-view and people will go and buy it. And what is your undercard looking like? If that's your main event, what is your undercard looking like, for Christ's sake? It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. Now, he decided to continue digging. And I agree with D-Mac, by the way. There are a lot of indie talents out there. There are a lot of women who are kind of in training who Billy Corgan probably could have contacted and brought in with the blessing of other promotions. And I think this is kind of where he should have kind of smartened up, because when he was one of the piranha that was chewing his face off was named Hyann. Hyann is a women's wrestler from Reality of Wrestling, Booker T's school. She's not signed to anybody as far as I know. She had a video. She had a video that has like 40 million views or something like that. It's her in a cage match against AQA. It's got like 40 million views or something like that. So when she came up and she said, like, women can draw because, like, I have a match that outdraws multiple of what Trevor Murdoch draws, I'm suspicious about how many views that video has, but it does have like 40 million views. But she's not signed anywhere, though. You would think somebody who could generate 40 million views, AEW would have snatched her up with the quickness. But she's been like a job girl on AEW. She hasn't done anything. WWE hasn't signed her. It's like, okay, if she can generate that kind of interest, somebody should have signed her by now. But there are some world-class female wrestlers out there that are not signed to WWE or AEW, but the most marketable names are. The most marketable names are signed to WWE and AEW. He would have to make some kind of deal because Mickie James on her own is not enough. And again, when they did Empower, it was such a big landmark event that people like Gail Kim was willing to do it, even for free. But if it's going to be a yearly thing, probably not. Probably not going to do it for free all the time. You could still have to make travel arrangements and all that kind of stuff. That's probably not going to be the same. So you're talking about money here, some big money. Now, if I was going to run an all women's event, I probably would look at the women in Mexico or, some trainee women who are still trying to get their feet wet in the business. But when you're selling a pay-per-view, $30 or whatever to an audience, you can't load it up with trainees and people that nobody knows. And then the main event is somebody who wouldn't even make the main card of a Dynamite. People who be like, you can't do that. It just doesn't work out. So here's what Billy Corgan had to say on Busted Open Radio about Empower. He says, nothing is more dumb than trying to spin a guy like me who ran an all-women's pay-per-view, which was a huge success, put a pin in that. I built it around Mickie James as a talent and personality. I endorsed the whole thing. I let her build the card. I lost money doing it. But now I'm against women's wrestling? Come on. This is silly. The conversations with Mickey were about running a subsequent Empower. I said, if it's not going to be as good or better, we probably shouldn't do it right now. If people remember what I said, and they obviously don't, there isn't enough top available talent on the market right now. DMAC is 100% correct. They don't even have top male talent. So they certainly don't have top female talent. But this is where Billy Corgan needs to get creative. He should have called Conan. Go in a different direction. Go in a direction that other companies are not going in. For instance, both WWE and AEW lean very heavily towards the Japanese women. They're not bringing in Mexican women. I will call Conan. I will call Conan and say, hey, can we get some of your female wrestlers from AAA in here? Feature them on TV for a little bit. You know, they get some exposure in the United States. You get to have some top quality veteran female talent on your show. You can book a match that people wouldn't expect to see. And then if you got some money, maybe a couple of bucks, maybe you try to get like a top female wrestler from like Impact or something. Maybe you get Deonna Purrazzo or somebody like that to be in another part of the show or something like that. They just don't have the money. You know, they don't have the resources to do this shit. You know, they really just don't have the resources to do it. And the interesting part to me, the part that just jumps out at me, is when he says, a guy like me who ran an all-women's pay-per-view, which was a huge success. And then a couple of lines later, he says, I lost money doing it. Like, what does that tell you? You lost money doing it, but it was a huge success. You know, I lost money doing it, but it was a huge success. But there's a lot of women who, if we're being honest, are nearing retirement age. They're a little bit older. They're probably willing to do. Victoria is one of them. I just saw her recently. She started an open OnlyFans. I'm pretty sure she'll be willing to come back and do a match. Maybe give her a retirement match, something to draw the show with. You know, could have stole the idea from Conrad Thompson, like Mickey James' last match at Empower or whatever. And did want to continue that last rodeo concept or whatever the fuck. You could have done some things, but how are you going to fill a card? That's going to be the issue. You can get a match, on this show that would be interesting to somebody with names, but how do you build a card? You cannot build a card. And even if you did something like, we're going to put together the beautiful people, who are they going to wrestle? They're going to wrestle some girls nobody knows, So it's still not going to work out, because people are going to be like, okay, well, they're old and washed, and these other girls, let's say the pretty empowered, nobody knows who they are. So it would be like it would just be a weird situation. But what I want to look at here is him talking about losing money on this thing. It was clear to me that he probably lost money on it. That's why it's not going to happen. But it's also pretty clear that his idea of success when it comes to Empowered was not financial. It was a public relations success. For instance, once it happened, so many people started saying, well, if NWA can do it and they ain't got no damn money, why won't WWE do it? That became the victory of Empowered. The victory of Empowered became, we came together as a wrestling community to do this. Not too long afterwards, though, Tony Khan was like, hey, I paid for half the talent or whatever, So that broke the relationship that he had in building Empowered. Empowered was a collective thing. Impact helped. What's the name helped? MLW helped to a degree. you can still have some of that stuff happening. You can probably still have MLW help. You can probably still have Impact help, but AEW also helped. And they just don't have the resources without somebody there to finance some of the bigger name stars that would want to be on the product. It just wouldn't happen. And I think with Triple H being there, they'll probably be able to get some WWE assistants, at least some NXT talents. But I just don't see it happening. It won't happen. And people are just going to beat Billy Corgan to death because he bent the knee once to try to show up the wrestling world, show up AEW, show up WWE. We're going to have the women's only pay-per-view. You did it. And now they're bitching at you because you can't do it again. Because you can't do it again. So here's the continuance of his comment. He says, Tony Khan has signed a tremendous amount of top female talent. I'm not in a working relationship with AEW. I can't just pick up the phone and say, hey, can you send me some people? Part of that was Tony trying to take credit for what Mickey had accomplished. We were in discussions with Impact about doing something. I'm not a miracle worker. If I'm going to say this is about empowerment, which to me is about people who have not had an opportunity to speak at the grand stage before, Empower isn't just about all females. It's about giving people with different voices an opportunity. That was part of the discussion with Mickey. It doesn't have to be built around you. There are other ways to do this. We didn't agree on the business part of it. We tabled it, and we wanted to do it at a later date. If she took that wrong, I apologize. Let me say one thing personally. I've known Mickie James for 20 years. I've only been in the wrestling business with her for a few years. I think of her as a friend first, and I think if Mickey had a problem with me, she should pick up the phone and go, I didn't like how this went down. The issues with Mickey never came up with Nick in the last 6 months. If it's this huge issue, it never came up, not once. If it was an issue from when it started around NWA 74, he's worked for the company another 10 to 15 times and has been paid. People are throwing logs on the fire to create smoke to divert from the fact that they're not on about something. It seems obvious they are after something. She doesn't work for me. He does. They want to get out early. Just say you want to get out. It's this weird thing of I have to be the babyface and bury the company. It's bad conspiracy stuff. Now I'm in a position of defending something that doesn't need to be defended. So this is tremendous. Billy Corgan, once again, now Mickie James is involved. So Mickie James, who was putting together Empowered, just not working out. So this came out on Wrestling News. This November the 7th. It says Fightful was scheduled to interview Aldis, but after news broke out that Aldis gave his notice, and after he was pulled from this weekend shows, the interview was postponed. Aldis noted that Corgan's disrespect towards himself and his wife Mickie James in the lead up to and after the inaugural Empower pay-per-view is a quote huge reason for the relationship between Aldis and Nick NWA souring. It was also stated that both have never spoken about this publicly because Aldis was a top star in the company. Fightful adds that several women who have regularly appeared for the promotion felt disrespected by Corgan and Trevor Murdoch, claiming that there wasn't enough depth and enough women for a second Empower show. So, interestingly enough, Trevor Murdoch's name popped up. And Trevor Murdoch, he's the NWA World Champion. And he's obviously going to stand up for the NWA. He's clearly going to try to make the NWA sound good. But he did not help matters at all when he chimed into this. He definitely did not. He did not chime in well. Here's what Trevor Murdoch said, the NWA World Champion. First off, number one, look at the first Empower. We had a quarter of our girls on that show. You know what I mean? We had girls from all over the globe. We had girls from other companies. We had different working relationships with other companies when we did that first Empower. Number two, if you look back at that first Empower, many talents we had on that card just for that show. There were a lot of wrestlers on that show. So a lot of people don't understand someone's got to pay the bill. Like someone's got to pay those girls. And as much as Tony Khan wanted to chime in and say he paid for Layla Hirsch, which was great, but Billy covered the rest of that shit. And that was a huge, huge bill. When we came down to do a second Empower, there isn't a book out there that just has every great female pro wrestler out there that we can just look and go, oh, we can get this person, we can get this person, we can get that person. Now, granted, I know that there are a ton of fans out there that can give me a list of 10 or 20 people that they know in their area that could fit on that show. But also in the same sense, like I understand you're fans of those women, but maybe they haven't done what they needed to do to stand out to get the attention that they needed. There are so many factors in there onto what was said in that statement. It's easy. So now he's talking about the women. Trevor Murdoch are saying, okay, you can give me a list of 10 to 20 women, but nobody knows who they are. Nobody cares who they are. And this is just him being real because he's not wrong here. Yes, we all know that there's probably 10 or 15 female wrestlers. I just mentioned some. He could have called Conan and got some female wrestlers from Mexico. He could have called Booker T to use some of his students from Reality of Wrestling. Just being a female wrestler is not enough. They're also looking for named talent, people who can help sell the show. That's what they don't have. And if they did have access to those women, they don't have the resources by themselves to pay them. So I don't understand what's the problem here. It's like people have to understand that there are limitations. Billy Corgan does not have infinite amounts of money. He doesn't have infinite resources. He doesn't have infinite amount of connections. Even if he could get one or two women with a big name, that'd be the whole fucking card. You know, even if Mickey worked for free, that'd be the whole fucking card. People are not understanding that. Money is a huge issue here. These women are not doing the shit for free. They're not doing it for just good marketing. They want to be paid. Like, I would have said straight up, it's all these women who are taking shots. If you're not willing to do it for free or for little money below your normal rate, shut the fuck up. There's plenty of women out there who are jumping up and down, attacking Trevor Murdoch, attacking Billy Corgan. And I would say straight up, you're willing to cut your rate in half to have a match on this show? If the answer is no, then we're out of the conversation. The conversation is done. Because you are going to be a business person and say, I want my hotel room taken care of. I want to get paid this. Because I got to get on an airplane and all this kind of stuff. And you're asking the company to pay for all of that. That's an expensive bill. The company already paying for the building. You know, they already paying for the referees and the cameraman. They got to give a cut to Fight TV. There's already so much stuff going on. And then you show up entitled to a spot because you're a female, because you got boobs. You know, you're entitled to a spot on this card all of a sudden. You're entitled to a women's wrestling show. Like, no, you're not. He never should have did the first one. Never should have did the first one. It was a mistake. It was a mistake. Here's Trevor Murdoch continuing. He says, like, it's easy for people to jump on the negative and just say, hey, you guys are assholes. You know, there's a lot of factors that were going into that decision and a whole lot of factors that went into Empower to make it successful. Also, some of the people that are publicly making comments, you know, oh, we should have did it, or they are upset that was part of their decision. Privately, they were burying the whole thing. You know what I mean? That's what makes me shake my head. Publicly, people want to say one thing, but privately, they were saying the complete opposite. I'm not going to sit here and air someone's dirty laundry out, but I know better. I heard from the horse's mouth. So it's one of those things, there's way more factors going into it. Not to mention, like some of those girls that we booked for the last Empower, the dates didn't match up. You know what I mean? They were already booked in other places, or they were already with another company. Were they not allowed to wrestle anywhere else? But you know, why think of all that shit why put all that into consideration? It's just easy to look at a rich guy, a rich musician, and bury him for one single fucking comment and not put any thought on it. Wow. And I think he's got a good point there. Yeah, Billy Corgan is rich, but just because he's rich doesn't mean that he can make everything fall into place. It don't work that way. You know, it just doesn't. It just doesn't make sense. It's not going to work out, the way they want it to. So here's something else that he said that I think. Well, wait a minute. Let's see if this is the same. It might be the same quotes. Okay, so here's another one. He said, "You're going to have women. We are a smash mouth style of pro wrestling, but we're also safe. Oh man, there are going to be girls who are going to bury me because there is no right or wrong answer to this. At the time, from what I was told, there wasn't enough women that we could get and put together and have the show the same quality as the year before. I'm sure there are a lot of amazing female wrestlers out there, and there are a lot of amazing female wrestlers. Girls are out there killing it. At the time, we couldn't find enough. Now everyone has made a list, like thousands. Didn't we have that list before in Power? No, we didn't. No one wants to talk about that, though. It's just easy to jump on the bandwagon. Let's be realistic." Well, again, the man's not wrong, okay? Everybody's got a list of all of their favorite female wrestlers in the world. But they didn't have access to all of these people. I mean, Billy Corgan doesn't know all of the women's wrestlers on the planet. But that being said, this is where he should have used his connections, He should have been able to catch some people, talk to some people. He definitely should have been able to get into some conversations and find out how this was going to work out. But when WWE is no longer cutting talent, but instead signing talent, and so is AEW, and Impact is too, to a degree, but Impact is a little bit more flexible than most because I think they get paid in hamburgers and handshakes in Impact. It pretty much left slim pickings on the Empower tip. And again, he's got to market this show. He's got to sell tickets. It's going to be very difficult for him to get that done. So before we leave Billy Corgan, matter of fact, let's keep on the same tip, because apparently Taryn Terrell, not too long after Billy Corgan made his comments about not having enough talented women on the roster, Taryn Terrell decided to retire. So now it doesn't make that much of a big deal, really. But Taryn Terrell was featured quite a bit on Impact. No, she was on Impact at first, but she also got featured quite a bit on the NWA. But Mickie James also came out and tweeted a comment saying, "I stand by my man. The family business is about to pick up." So she's, of course, talking about Nick Aldis and things where Nick Aldis is about to change, which is interesting. Very interesting stuff. So NWA is imploding. I mean, it is absolutely. It ain't gonna turn out. It ain't gonna turn out great. It doesn't help that EC3 loves NWA and they're talking about how much he loves NWA. But somebody mentioned this earlier, and this is a very interesting quote that Billy Corgan has here. It's another one of those embarrassing things. "I feel like we're in that ECW mid-90s position where we're actually building something that has a lot of momentum, but the general business doesn't understand that something is happening on the ground because they're focused on what's happening elsewhere. That's what I keep telling people. Don't sleep on us. They're going to wake up one day and be very surprised that we're very competitive. Everything I'm doing is to rebuild the culture of the NWA from the ground up. It's not always as flashy as I would like it to be, or splashy, but once we hit our stride, and we're just about there now, when you look at the physicality of the NWA as opposed to other wrestling companies, That's really going to be a difference maker. We're pretty much the most physical company out there. We are trying to attract new fans, mainstream fans, lapsed fans, and fans who at some point burn out on too much no selling. They're going to come back around to the NWA and realize that there is validity. That I'm so sorry. I've been trying to hold it in ever since he said we're like the mid 90s ECW. Oh God, really? You're mid 90s? Okay. Okay. So he said they're going to come back around to the NWA and realize that there is validity, that there is timeless. That's what we're going on and starting to really click now. This last year, it really turned the corner and starting to look like the company that I hoped I was buying and how I built it. Whether you pop in now or next time, when you do, you're going to be surprised at the level of the quality. That goes on back to the argument about Empower Show. It's very trendy to say that I'm doing something. It's another thing to actually pull it off. What the NWA stands for now is every time you run a pay-per-view, it's very, very good. Very solid, top to bottom. Our mid-card matches are just as important as our main events. There was a time where we had a couple of cool matches and pretty good main events and other stuff where you were like, could have been a TV match. We don't run those pay-per-views anymore. Don't sleep on us. Billy Corgan is clearly on that angel dust. He clearly on something. This man is clearly on something. I look, I'll forever like a guy who is confident in what he's doing, but Billy Corgan is out of his goddamn mind. He's out of his mind. All right. This company is absolutely just falling apart under the weight of its own ridiculousness. If he thinks that putting fucking Tyrus and Trevor Murdoch in the main event and saying, yeah, we put on some really great wrestling cards. Like, dude, are you fucking serious? Tyrus and Trevor Murdoch? I just looked at, I think the most recent, probably not even the most recent, probably last week, Power Show had a question mark versus question mark match. I'm like, I don't even want to know how we got there. I don't even care about that. I just looked at that and was like, you know what? We're done here. You know, I'm disgusted by this. You know, and clearly Rodney Mack is like 48 years old. He's probably not fully 50. He's certainly over 40. He moves like his diaper's full. I can't believe this shit. I can't believe we're sitting here watching Tyrannosaurus getting main event matches. I can't believe we're sitting here watching fucking Trevor Murdoch, who looks like a truck stop guy. I can't believe this shit. And he's been selling me on this crap for like a year now. No wonder I backed out. Matt Cardona was a big star. I think that there was something going on with him. But out of nowhere, Matt Cardona just became a job guy. I know he got hurt, but his title run ended, and then they didn't go back to him. Instead, they just decided to go with Trevor Murdoch and Tyrus. They had him lose to a midget too, twice. I am floored by the stupidity of Billy Corgan. I know part of the problem also was Billy Corgan's relationship with Matt Cardona. And recently, Bully Ray has been popping up on NWA. So it might be an issue with Nick Aldis that, you know, other people were coming in and they were getting Billy's ear. Because 5 years of hearing the same shit over and over again does get frustrating. Maybe somebody else slid in there and was like, hey, here's what we can do. We can fix this. We can do better. You know, here's what we can add. Here's what we can take away. You know, but I'm deeply disturbed. And I don't think it'll be long before we're talking about the NWA in past tense. I think that Billy Corgan, all the money in the world, the guy may have quite a bit of money. You know, he has tanked his company quite a bit with these comments. There's going to be people, specifically some women, who are not going to want to work for him anymore. He's turned off quite a bit of fans. A lot of fans, to be quite honest, the political fair weather fans, they weren't watching the show anyway. So to me, it didn't bother me that much because they're not already not watching the product. So some of these people who are talking about this, talking about empower and how it's not happening and how it's the white male patriarchy and all that kind of shit, they weren't watching the show anyway. You know, so they're just looking for excuses to not watch the show. And you gave them one by talking about how, there's not enough women's talent. Because you're not taking into account your budget. You're not taking into account the right timing. You're not taking into account anything. They just want what they want. And if you're not going to get what they want, if you're not going to give them what they want, they're going to act up. They're spoiled brats. And I don't believe in giving brats what they want. I believe in doing what you can do, and trying to make it happen as best you can, but not breaking the bank, not, putting your own company out of business to do it. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I still watch NWA, but I made it clear NWA USA was just one show too many. I was not going to watch that show. And I watched the episode that had Raven on it. That was it. I watched that episode of NWA USA. I have not watched it again. Just nothing on the show is interesting. I just don't see it as being interesting. I don't see how it affects the main show. And the main show has gotten really bad too because of the GIMP, because of all of the weird stuff that they've been doing. So I've just not been interesting. Just not been interested in NWA. I still look at it, but I don't really, I'm just not that entrenched in this. And now that I look at things, now that you look at things, and this just popped up as I was going through Twitter. Chelsea Green apparently just announced that she's quote unquote going home. So she won't even be on Impact anymore. So everybody's talking about Chelsea Green going to WWE now. Chelsea Green was featured with Matt Cardona in NWA. So if she gets signed to WWE, that's another woman, at least with name value, that NWA doesn't have access to anymore. So it's like there's just so many of those people out there. But I get it. I get that fans are disappointed. A lot of them are upset that he would dare say that there's not enough talented women on in the world, because you're supposed to think that everybody is equally talented and that everybody is equally good, when that's clearly not the case. It's clearly not the case. But you're supposed to believe that. You're supposed to think that. You're supposed to believe that. And you're supposed to believe that he has an infinite amount of money and infinite time and infinite resources to make this thing happen because that's what you want. It's like he can't make all your dreams come true. And I find it interesting enough that in all of that, he mentioned how he lost money on Empower. But it was still a success because it was a public relations juggernaut. He was able to pull the show off. He was able to pull the show off, and it got such a great reaction. And here's the interesting thing. Probably one of the last things I'm going to discuss on here is all the women's wrestlers that I saw. One of them, I think, was Shazza McKenzie. Just say, you guys should just admit that you hate women's wrestling. And again, a complete and total, just an ignorant comment. If you look at the guy who's gushing about women, how the future of the business is women, he's the one who put all the money into, and the time and the interest and the marketing into the first outside of WWE all women's pay-per-view event, outside of Shine or something like that. Which, now that I think about it, Billy Corgan probably could have did some work with them. Could have did some work with WOW Women of Wrestling or whatever. But it's been an absolutely frightening descent of the NWA since NWA 74, where they had Empower and everything. That was the last gasp of goodwill for that company. I mean, when you started seeing Tyrus in the main event, you started seeing, guys come and go from that company. Matt Cardona became the world champion again immediately, like tore his bicep or something like that. It's been snake bit since the pandemic. There has been little gasps of breath from NWA for the last 2 years, but it hasn't been much. It's been weird. It's been very weird. And to D-Mac's point here, NWA feels like the ghost of a WWE developmental past. He actually said that. I'm about to find that comment. He actually said that he will be interested in letting NWA be a WWE developmental program. So let me see if I can find what he actually said. Because I know he was interested in this, and he claimed he's talking to Triple H. But let's see if I can find where he was talking about it. Yeah, here it is. Billy Corgan open to NWA being developmental brand for WWE or AEW. So here's what he had to say. Corgan spoke to Metro UK recently and noted that he previously had discussions with Paul Levesque regarding NWA airing on the WWE network. It didn't go anywhere, and that was fine. Very, very good discussions, very open and cool. They certainly liked what I was trying to do, and they've always been cool about what I was doing in the NWA. So I remain optimistic going into the future that there might be some business there to do. There might be economic models where they say, take these 10 talent, let us have an oversight position, you help develop these talents. It'd be good for NWA, it'd be good for WWE. There are lots of opportunities there. I would say the same thing even if it pertains to AEW. AEW has a tremendous amount of talent under contract. Not everybody is able to be on their main shows. There might be opportunities where they need to send those people on a developmental level. I don't need somebody's wrestling vision to align with mine if we can do business together. And at the same time, I don't need them to agree with everything I'm doing. I'm lucky with that. When you look at the main roster in WWE, I count some of those among my friends. And some of those people are people I've worked with. You might see a different flexibility with WWE as far as other companies go moving into the future. Certainly my conversations in the past with Triple H would indicate there's a different degree of openness there than maybe would have been in the regime that was running things before. So he was interested in being a developmental program, a developmental system for WWE. And you know what? I would actually be okay with that too. Because as D-Mac says here, it's not really sustainable, the NWA, running it as an independent. The reason for that is simply Corgan just does not have the money. And as there being two major wrestling promotions, I don't even know if Impact counts. There being two major wrestling promotions, anytime a major talent makes themselves available, they'll be snatched up by WWE or AEW. And that's just kind of how it is. This includes international talent. So what can NWA really do except maybe bottom feed off of one of these other companies and say, we will bring in some of your undercard talent and they can work with some of our girls, because NWA still does bring in veterans. Melina has worked there. Camille works there. She's been in their business for a little while now. Mickie James was working there. I'm pretty sure she doesn't work there much anymore. But here's the interesting thing, though. Billy Corgan sounds like a guy who has been trying everything. He's tried running as competition to WWE and AEW and all these other promotions. He got eaten alive. He's tried running as an alternative, but the style is too old. And a lot of the younger wrestling fans are not interested. And the style. They also are very politically minded. And Billy Corgan has come out and said that he doesn't care about the wrestlers' politics. He only cares about their performance and stuff like that. So that means that he might feature Titus or EC3. And there's going to be these progressive wrestling fans who don't want to watch those guys, and they're going to boycott it. Just like those same fans hated when Jim Cornette was there. And Jim Cornette was the start of what broke the camel's back anyway. Because it was Jim Cornette's comments that ended up killing the original incarnation of NWA Power. You know, it getting taken down from YouTube and all that kind of good, all that stuff out there. Once you have that, you can't undo it. You wanted to have an old school feel, but these new school fans are far more sensitive than the old school fans were. So you can't do the exotic Adrian Street gimmick anymore. You know, that guy has to be a babyface. He can't be a heel anymore. They were trying to do this with their version of the Vikings, but one of them was gay. And they didn't make a big deal about him being gay. I don't think they mentioned it that many times, but they did mention it. They did make sure everybody knew that he was gay. You know, it was like you can't play both sides of the fence. You can't be a forward-thinking, quote-unquote, progressive wrestling company and also conservative, old-school, genuine pro wrestling. You can't be both. You can't be both. You know? So what are you going to do? You got to make a decision. And if you make the decision to go with the kind of wrestling show that you liked when you were a kid, which I don't see a problem with on the surface, the fact of the matter is these kids today, and a lot of these young guys today, these what culture and wrestle talk guys, they hate that wrestling in the past. They look at Tracy Smothers and the goddamn Confederate flag and they're offended. They look at Michael P.S. Hayes and the Confederate flag and they're offended. They get upset at the concept of Butch Reed versus Junkyard Dog in a ghetto street fight. Or Bill Watts made one of them call the other one a coon or Uncle Tom. They get upset at old wrestling gimmicks. They get upset at old promos. I was just watching a video today about somebody who was really, really upset about Oklahoma, the gimmick where they was making fun of Jim Ross. It's like, in the past, wrestling fans had a sense of humor where something like Gags the Gimp might actually have gotten over and would have been funny in like 1998. But today, they look at it and say it's weird, it's gross, it has no place. And Billy Corgan is a guy, he's in his 50s, I think. He's looking and saying, like in the 90s, this would have worked. If you'd have did this on the Attitude Era and you grab some guy and put him in a gimp suit, people would have popped at that. They didn't thought that was funny. They thought that was great. But in 2022, people don't want their kink shamed. They don't want their kink turned into some kind of comedy gimmick. They're looking for a reason to be offended. They're looking for something to get upset about. You know, there were really people sitting around clocking and watching how many women's matches are on the show. How long are those matches? You know, do the women get to cut promos? They have a completely different mind state, a completely different mindset off of what wrestling should be. Billy Corgan isolated a lot of those people with the Jim Cornette stuff because a lot of people didn't like Jim Cornette already. And they already was kind of like, I don't know, man, Jim Cornette's on this show. I might not watch it. While people like me was like, oh, Jim Cornette is in his element. This is a Southern wrestling promotion, but it's kind of new age. You know, with The Rock and everything, it was kind of dope. And then Cornette made that comment, you know, what was it about having the buckets of chicken on your back or something like that? It wasn't nothing I got offended about, and I'm black as hell. But all the white people got offended, and that's just kind of how it is. White people get offended on your behalf. And they had to take the episode down. And then there was that whole kerfuffle with Dave Lagana and Jim Cornette that damaged the brand. And then Dave Lagana, I think, got hit with like a speaking out or something like that, didn't he? And he had to quit the program. So the program definitely changed then. Then the pandemic happened. Then a lot of his really good promo talent, like Eli Drake, like Eddie Kingston, like Ricky Starks, they got called to other companies. Thunder Rosa, he put all the effort in making Thunder Rosa a top star. She got snatched away from to AEW. And it just became too much. He can't afford to compete for the free agents that WWE and AEW can. He just can't do it. He's reached his limitations. And now he's trying to do things that are different. And people are shitting on it because he's still trying to be old school. He's looking at Trevor Murdoch as a modern day Dusty Rhodes, where everybody's looking at Trevor Murdoch and saying that's a WWE Tag Team Champion mid-card guy. Barely mid-card guy. Why is he in the main events? You know, he's not somebody that anybody want to see. But if you took somebody like a Jordan Clearwater, I know some people like him, and you tried to make him a top guy, the first thing that would happen, he gets snatched up to NXT 2 weeks later. If you push the fucking guy to become a top star, fucking AEW comes calling. NXT comes calling or whatever, and the guy's gone. So it really doesn't behoove you to make any new talent, because if you try to make anybody, somebody's just going to snatch them. So you try to bring in veterans. That's your next route. Okay, I'm gonna bring in older talent. You know, the Mr. Andersons, even though he kind of a burnout. Melina, burnout. You know, and then it turns into a nostalgia run for everybody. You know, so now Madison Rayne gets a nostalgia run, and Tim Storm is still there, and you know, it's just he's stuck in the middle. He's stuck in the middle. And it wouldn't be right for him, who doesn't have a lot of money, to assign guys to these ridiculous comments. To these ridiculous contracts, like let's say Court Bauer does. Why you would sign a fucking 5-year contract to MLW, I have no fucking idea. Why would you do that? You know, like, why would you dedicate 5 years of your life to MLW? I wouldn't do that. Nobody with a brain would do that. Nobody near the age of 30 should ever do that. You know, and that's why Brian Pillman had to get the fuck out of there, you know, as fast as he did. You know, it's like people had to get out of there, man. You're stuck in these smaller companies. You get a break to get somewhere bigger. You got to take it. Try to run away. You know, yeah, these prospects from 2015, 2005 and shit, man. It's tough. It's tough. You know, he's just stuck in a place where the only talent he can get are the talent nobody wants. And he's trying to make the best that he can out of the talent that nobody wants. And so in some respects, he is in that ECW spot. Because in the early days of ECW, you had Terry Funk, who was too old for WWF and for WCW. But you had guys that they'd never seen before, like Sabu, who have never really made a splash in the country in any way. But they also had young talent, you know, but a lot of those guys were local. Like, I think his name was JT Smith, or was it JT Storm or whatever? He's a local Philadelphia guy. Big star for, you know, ECW at the time, but he was local. Nobody knows who he is when he steps, you know, 3 inches to the left or whatever. And it became a difficult thing, because if they did get somebody and pushed them, then WWE or WCW just snatched them up. The whole cruiserweight division, all the Mexicans snatched up from WCW. Chris Jericho, Benoit, and Dean Malenko. They would get these guys over, and then Bischoff would just come in and snatch those guys out. So it became difficult. But that's kind of what you have to do. You kind of have to just create a pipeline. You know, maybe start letting guys get bought out of contracts, you know, sign them to a longer term contract or whatever, and then hope the company's willing to buy them out. So at least you would get something out of it. But if you're going to run as an independent, you got to spend a little bit more money. You can't just rely on fucking Rodney Mack in a mask wrestling some other fat dude in a mask. I mean, come on. That shit not gonna work out, man. You know, a bunch of New Japan dojo rejects and shit like that, man. I mean, I look at New Japan dojo and I see a lot of great guys who are young and in shape. They work very, very hard, and all they do is jobs. And I look at a guy like a Carl Fredericks, and I say that guy, man, he's in great shape. He looks good. There's another young guy. I think Clark Connors. There's another one. Great shape, looks solid. You know he can work, but he's tied up in that New Japan system. Maybe he's a guy who you can use. You know, New Japan has some talent. NWA isn't really a threat to them. The guy's already in the country. Yeah, the LA Dojo guys, right. There's a tons of people that you can go out there and get and try to build your show around. And then hopefully you can swipe them, because what's the likelihood of Clark Connors getting from fucking LA Dojo to the main event of the Tokyo Dome within the next 10 years? Minimal. Chances of him getting there are probably fucking zilch. So you offer him another opportunity to be the centerpiece of your wrestling promotion. And hell, if it actually starts to work, the worst that happens is you get a good run out of him. He starts kind of drawing you some money, drawing you some interest, and then guys start getting snatched. You know, and that might be the. No, Carl Fredericks is not in NXT yet. I think he had a tryout. United Wrestling Network uses a lot of those guys since they were West Coast based. Yeah. And interestingly enough, Billy Corgan had a lot of relationships with those guys too, and that stuff fell through. You know, he was doing stuff with United Wrestling Network, and that stuff also fell through. You know, I like Danny Limelight too. He was in I don't think did he wrestle in NWA? I think he was. He was in NWA for a little while. But again, these things fall through. Something is up with Corgan though, where every time he works with somebody, he ends up falling out with them. He fell out with Dixie, fell out with Tony Khan, fell out with David Marquez. He just falls out with everybody, man. It's hard to tell. You know, it's a hard sell, but there is guys out there. There is talent out there. You might have to spend some money. You might have to play it safe. You might have to piss some people off, but you can get them. You can get there's talent out there that you can build your show around. And I'll never forget. I'm pretty sure Darren Young. What the fuck is his real name now? I don't know. But he was actually being built in a storyline for NWA before he got yanked to New Japan. You know, they were doing something interesting between the two of them, and then they yanked him to New Japan. And I was like, damn, that sucked. You know, like, it's weird, but it's not looking very good. It ain't looking good for him. You know, NWA is going to end up crumbling, and without Nick Aldis being the front man, I really dread what's going to be going on. Fred Rosser, that's his name. And here's another thing. You've got Reality of Wrestling. You've got OVW. Why isn't Corgan trying to get in with them? You know, like there's a lot of, you know, different promotions out there that you could share talent with. Like Reality of Wrestling basically just does shows in Texas. I don't think they even leave the state of Texas. You mean to tell me that Booker T can't send some of his talent to St. Louis to work with NWA, or to Georgia to work in NWA? You mean to tell me some like OVW? I think they go further south, and I think they go down to like Kentucky and stuff like that. To Kentucky and Tennessee. But you mean to tell me like those guys can't run some NWA shows? Like Billy Corgan needs somebody that's in his corner that can look at him and say, all right, you're not going to sign fucking John Cena. All right, it's not going to happen. You ain't gonna be. You probably won't even be able to get. But if you get an MJF or a Brian Pillman Jr., you got 2 years tops before they get snatched and they're gonna be gone, right? So your best bet is to join a conglomerate of sorts. You know, you bring in some guys who have some experience. They work in other places. Reality of Wrestling is one of them. OVW is another. United Wrestling Network is another one. New Japan Dojo. These are guys that you folks will likely not see everywhere. You know, yes, Will All Day. Absolutely. He's very good. I like Will All Day. You know, there's plenty of stuff, plenty of people that you can contact if you really wanted to make some deals to freshen up your talent roster so that you don't have fucking Tyrus in your main event. So you won't have fucking Trevor Murdoch in your main event. So that your product does have an old school feel, but has young talent who look good. Maybe not build your light heavyweight division around Homicide. How about that? You know, the tag team division, not too bad. The women's division, not too bad. But Trevor Murdoch being your top main star sucks. You know, Homicide being there, not that great of an idea, man. Now, I'm not saying that Homicide sucks or anything like that, but he's an also-ran. He's a guy who's been in the business and been in these positions for a long time. You know, he's just a guy who's been there, and people don't really care to see Homicide that much anymore. Unless they want to see Homicide where they are. They want to see him in AEW or, you know, Impact or something like that. It's just, he needs somebody who can try to help him bring those types of talents in. Yeah, like the entire conception of Tyrus versus Trevor Murdoch, it looks like a match from 1973. And when you look at it, people are going to look at them and just immediately look at their WWE personas. This is the Funkasaurus versus the tobacco chewing, plaid shirt, trucker hat wearing guy. That's not a fucking main event to those people, man. You didn't really reinvent them. You tried, but you didn't really reinvent them. You know, Chris Masters is still there. You know, he's fine. Tom Latimer is a kind of a burnout from Impact. If I remember correctly, isn't Tom Latimer the guy who got into a fight with Charlotte when they were married, or he abused her, quote unquote? However that went, I'm pretty sure some people, you know, they're going to have a thing about that. So you're just going to have these issues, and you can freshen your talent roster up by utilizing younger talent who need the experience. It's just not going to work out. It ain't going to work out. It ain't going to work out doing it the way he's doing it. You know, you're going to have to bring in some a crop of new talent, and he's not doing it. Look, it's a sad thing because that's really what got NWA working. Like, that's what got it cooking at the beginning. There was this, it was the old school aesthetic with some of the new people we have never really seen before, you know. And they still have some people we you know, that you haven't really seen a lot of before, like Odinson. You know, guys interesting, something there. You know, Mecha Wolf and Bastia, say. It's like you have to watch like Mexican wrestling to really know who those guys are. But you know, Camille was another good find for him. He's doing good stuff with Kylan King, who was basically not doing anything in AEW. But for Christ's sake, when you turn on the show and you see fucking Tyrus as a top guy, fucking Crimson is there, fucking Rodney Mack, he's like, oh my God, what the fuck? You know, like, this ain't gonna work, bro. I'm even throwing my hands up, you know? Like, you look, he's got some good talent there. You know, I mentioned Jordy Clearwater already, but he got what's his name? Kerry Morton's son. You know, yeah, Kerry Morton, that's his name. Ricky Morton's son, Kerry. He's a good kid, you know. He's getting started. He don't got a lot of experience, This good that he is there. But you got what's the name, son? Too Luke Hawk's. Luke Hawk's son is there. You know, he got something to him. He got some spirit to him. He's a good little young amateur wrestler. Those are the guys. Kobe Carino, I ain't the biggest fan of Kobe Carino, but at least he's, you know, he's not an also ran. He's not a guy that we've been watching on TV for years that's been discarded from everybody and from everywhere. Look at the talent that NXT is getting rid of. You need to call a guy like a Bodie Hayward or whatever and say, look, you still want to in wrestling? Come on in and do this. I would sign up pretty much everybody that they cut from the PC. I would just instantly be like, you interested? Come on in immediately. Because at least it's somebody different. At least it's somebody new. They've already been trained. They probably already got some talent and got an idea of how to cut a promo, an idea of how to talk, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of shit you need to freshen up your product. I will be paying attention. I'll be paying very close attention to the kinds of talent that are being cut specifically from the PC. You know, and I just don't get why he's just stuck on the fucking guys that he has. Especially looking at him, because they're not good. Fucking Judas, he sucks. Right? Like he has been the worst part of the show every time I turn the show on. Everything Father James Mitchell does is not good. Like I have not been interested in anything that he has done on this show in months. I've just been like, this is awful. Everything is fucking awful. You know? The only thing I've really been paying attention to when it comes to NWA has been the women's division. Because they had some pretty good matches between Kylan King and Camille. Then I think it was Taya Valkyrie and Camille. They had some good matches. They had a good match at Triple Mania. I think they're going Kylan King and Camille again at the pay-per-view. That ought to be fun. You know, so the women's division has been fine for the most part, but boy crikey, that men's division is full of fucking dinosaurs, bro. And all the young boys ain't nothing but jobbers, you know. Even the young boys who's been there for a while, they ain't nothing but jobbers. They're not moving up in the progression of the roster or anything like that. You know, it's not helpful. You got to start moving these people along. I know that you want name value. You want people to, you know, tune in because, hey, I've seen this guy before. But look, I like JTG as much as the next person, but why is he on your show? You know, I don't know, man. Unless you're going to do something with him that makes him fresh and new, he's an old head. You move him along. You know, maybe hook him up with some young guy and put the young guy in his corner or something like that as his young boy or something. But it's a mess. It's a mess. I like Kylan King too, from what I've seen, and I really only watched her in AEW because I don't. In NWA because I don't watch AEW guard. I can't sit through it. I've tried. I tried watching what was that Jungle Kiona, or Jungle whatever, because I heard she was really good. I didn't see anything special out of her. She's just another female Japanese wrestler. I didn't see anything great about her. But I did give her a chance. I was fair. I think the match was like 7 minutes, but I didn't really see anything that really blew my mind. But I've sat here over the course of the last hour and 40 minutes. Most of it, I spent time talking about or reading what Corgan said or Nick Aldis or whatever. But interspersed in that, I had 100 fucking ideas and how to help this company grow. And yeah, Judge is not very good. He's very stilted right now. And but he needs time, you know. That's the thing. He needs ring time. So many of these people are not getting what they need. They might have potential, but if they're on a crowded roster, like an NXT roster or something like that, where You know, if you're not good right out of the gate, they're talking about cutting you. Shit. You need to be the safety net for some of these people. You know, you might have to start running shows in Florida, which is probably what I would do. You know, I probably would start running shows in fucking Florida if I was goddamn Billy Corgan. I'd just sit back and wait. Soon as NXT cuts some people, hey, you interested? Come on in. Shit. You never know what you're going to get. WWE cared enough to sign them and train them. They still want to do the wrestling thing. You provide a platform, and you never know what you might get. So, but you got to get rid of your dinosaurs. You know, you got to change your creative too. You know, you got to change your creative. But you got some young guys in the MLW, man. They seem to be stuck in those forever contracts, like Myron Reed. Like, it would be so bad. Myron Reed is a guy that you could see doing, I would say, doing good in AEW, but he'd probably get stuck in Rampage. He could do great in NXT. Like a Myron Reed, he could really kill it in NXT. You know, he's really good. You know, why he's still in MLW, shrug. You know, Calvin Tank, another one who could probably be killing it somewhere. Why is he still in MLW? Shrug. No fucking idea. All right. Willie Mack is another guy. I think several people have even come out and said that tons of guys, like, you know, why aren't Willie Mack getting opportunities? It's a good question. I know Willie Mack is a little old for WWE now. They was all about his weight before. They was on his ass about his weight. But the new regime in WWE doesn't give a fuck about his aesthetic. They will be looking at his size and his personality and stuff like that. But these guys being stuck in MLW, come on. You be trying to get these guys out of here. The Von Erich boys, get them the fuck out of MLW, man. Look, I like MLW. I really do. I think they make the most out of what they have. And they also don't have a lot of money. And that's the model that Billy Corgan should be looking at, is how to maximize what you do have. Let's say you got a guy, just got fired from the PC. He got nothing going for himself, but he wants to try some kind of crazy character that might fucking get over. Let him do it. Richard Holiday is fantastic. You know, Richard Holiday is fantastic. I love that guy. That guy is phenomenal. There's just so many talent that are out there. They're on the cusp of being something. You just have to get to them at the right point in time. Like there's a new saying floating around I've seen that it's easier to pick up a girl who has a boyfriend than it is to pick up a girl who is single. And then you realize that one of the reasons why that would be is it's easier to make her feel bad about the guy she's with. You know, if you can downplay the guys that she's with, it might be easier to get. So it might be easier to pick up a talent who's already under contract. Like, oh yeah, you under contract, but you're sitting there catering. You know, you ain't catering. You need to come on over here. We got a big, nice spot for you. If MLW did have money, they're blowing it now with this fucking lawsuit. They need to drop that damn lawsuit. It's a waste of money. I'm telling you, it's a waste of money. I said it. I meant it. Unless this lawsuit really works out, they must have just sold the company to WWE and just call it a day, dog. Because they gonna be broke as fuck. And I don't see how in any way. I don't see this whole thing with pro wrestling TV making too much money. You know, I just don't see how it makes that much money for them. You know, so I'm pretty sure it's a great deal. You know, but that lawsuit don't go their way, bruh. They wasted hundreds of millions of dollars probably. Because you're talking about, especially if WWE countersue, it's going to be over with. You know, they don't have to wrap that thing up. And and I'm pretty sure they could sell them everything. The rings, the logo, every talent on the roster still wouldn't cover the cost of their legal fees. So I don't see why they're doing this, but it's the last gasp of MLW. I don't know. You said they got action figures coming? That would be interesting. You know, I don't understand why these smaller companies just don't form a conglomerate. You know, just talent trade. Like it's easier for you to talent trade. You know, like I like the idea of I can only watch Myron Reed and MLW because that incentivizes me to watch MLW. But at the same time, you're limiting the young boy. You know, young boy should be doing so much more than this. You know, I don't even remember what the fuck he's doing in MLW. That's because I haven't been watching the product. Do I like EJ? I just think he doesn't have any experience. I know he got cut from NXT. He doesn't have any real experience, and all I've seen from him, he's just been incredibly stiff. You know, he needs to loosen up. He needs more experience. You know, and the only way for him to get it is for him to get reps. You know, yeah, they need to replicate in some way the old NWA system, but not try to do it on a we're going to compete nationally. But these organizations cannot possibly compete because they don't have any overlap. NWA, OVW, Reality of Wrestling, some of that stuff out west, Shine, Full Impact Pro, some of these companies, they don't have no overlap. They don't run in the same areas. They don't run pay-per-views at the same time or nothing like that. Why not help talent, you know, go to different places and stuff like that? You know, it's dumb not to, because you're getting your talent more seen by a different audience. You're getting them more over. Now, truthfully, you are increasing their rates. You know, because if a guy fucking around goes over here and you know gets over and start making a ton of money in t-shirts and stuff like that, he's gonna want to raise his rates, and that might not be good, especially if you can't afford it. You can barely afford the fucking guy already. But they need to really start getting in on the ground floor of some of these guys, because I'm telling you, one of the most devastating things that could happen is if Triple H decides he's going to start reaching out to some of these wrestling schools out there and making partnerships like Reality Wrestling or OVW or something like that, because then he's going to close the pipeline, you know, and that's really going to fuck these companies up. You know, that's kind of what he did in Europe. He went over there and locked up ICW and Progress, you know, and WXW and stuff like that. You know, I mean, they might say no, Ben. They might, but what's the benefit of them saying no? That's what I'm saying. Like, what's your benefit for saying no? And plus, the wrestlers are probably making so little money. Like, there's so many independent wrestlers who aren't making any fucking money. You know, like, they would probably kill to go somewhere else. Now, the problem that you would have, one of the problems, is travel. Because if you are basing your show in Florida or Georgia, like your NWA, you have to fly somebody in from California. That's the shits. They're not going to do that, right? They're not going to do that. You know, so you can forget it. But if there can be some kind of midway point, maybe, you know, maybe a promoter is willing to pick up a percentage, and your promotion picks up a percentage, and the wrestlers themselves pay a percentage. Maybe it'll go cheaper for everybody. I don't know, but that's the big hangup. Is there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to want to travel cross country. They're not going to want to drive because, again, it's not the old days. You know, there's not the old days. The old days, man, you would drive all across Nova Scotia or some shit for $50. They're not doing that shit today. You know, they'll go on Twitter and complain about that shit today. They're not doing it. So it's not going to happen. But they really need to consider that. They really need to consider it because a lot of talent are out there, and some of them are very good, but you can't see them. You can't find them anywhere. But I've heard that WWE is now, scouting at like Defy Wrestling and other wrestling promotions again, which of course they never stopped. The dirt sheets will have you believe that WWE stopped recruiting indie wrestlers, which is false. They've always been recruiting indie wrestlers. I mean, Carmelo Hayes was an indie wrestler first, but don't let the what Nick Khan told you, where he said that that's not going to be their main focus anymore, which is what the fuck he meant. He never said that they weren't going to stop. That we're going to stop using indie wrestlers. He said they're not going to be the main focus. But these people are stupid, and they have a narrative that they want to run. But WWE is out there looking for and recruiting talent. It's a mistake to. It's safe that you want to have all your old heads on your roster because WWE is not coming for them. He's not coming to steal Rodney Mack from you. Like, I can guarantee you that. But that's going to make your fans not want to watch the product either because they don't want to watch that shit. They don't want to see this fucking guy. And it's unfortunate, and it's nothing personal, but you have to look at what might be appealing to the audience, and it's not going to be appealing to the audience. Cora Jade was an indie wrestler. Again, you can't tell fucking dirt sheet guys nothing. Roxanne Perez is an indie wrestler. You can't tell these fucking guys nothing. They just said that that's not going to be their main focus anymore. That's all they said. They're leaning more towards the NIL program, and they just released a new performance center class. Let me look that up before we. I was about to wrap things up, but let's look at the new performance center class while I'm hearing on the subject, because I haven't looked at it yet. Oh boy, how y'all doing, man? Gigi Dolan was also an indie wrestler. Yep. Yeah, I mean, some of these people are so old, D-Mac, that there really is no purpose in you even trying. Like, some of these people are so old that it does not help you to try to bring new life to that name. Or the person just simply doesn't have anything left. They're on their last legs. Like, it's one thing to have a guy like Elijah Burke who can still cut promos, can still work, but he's not going to be your top level babyface or your top level heel anymore. Those days are gone. He missed the boat, to be quite honest. I think that Pope is one of the most underrated talents ever. He could have easily been a top babyface or a top heel in TNA or something like that, but he just never got there. He's in 2022, he's not going to be your top babyface or your top heel. But he's a serviceable top level name that people may recognize, and he can cut a promo to get people interested. I would keep him. But a lot of those guys on that roster are absolute dinosaurs, and I don't see any need for them at all. There's no real benefit to it. I thought he was going to be great in Impact too, but then they made him a fucking commentator. So I don't know. Okay, they don't have a list of these names. They know some of these people, but they don't have a list of names. I think all of these are NIL signings too. Yeah, these are track athletes and stuff like that. So I wouldn't know any of these people. Yeah, I wouldn't know any of these people. This guy sounds African. Chukwunsum Inuikiichi? What kind of name is that? CHUKWUSOM. That's his first name. That's crazy. ENEKWECI. He's a shot put athlete. From Eastern. Oh, he's from the hood. Yeah, Eastern ain't. Well, it's not that far from here. But he sounds like he might be like West African. Um, Track and field. Well, football player Hayden Pittman. They're not showing me a picture of these fucking people. I don't know what they look like. So I don't know what any of these people look like. They all college athletes. Ain't none of them indie wrestlers. A couple of football players. Oh, this guy's Haitian. That's cool. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. A pro soccer player from Iceland. Jesus Christ. I'm trying to find a site that has these pictures with like the names on them, so I can tell what they look like. Because I can't look at them. Like I can't see them. I can see what their names are, but I can't like see who they are. Because I'm trying to get a feel for them. And as a football player, I would imagine you're pretty stout. You're a big dude. But the WWE PC Twitter account doesn't even have a picture of them. So you can't do too much. Usually I do the PC class alongside of the NXT because that's where they're going to be going first. So we'll get there. What? Wait a minute. Somebody did a wrestling expose in 2017? What? Who are you to be doing wrestling exposés in 2017? Bruh. Oh, well, I forgot. This is in Australia. I guess they must be on a different time zone where it's 1981 or some shit. You're doing expose on 2017 pro wrestling. You gotta be kidding me. Whatever. Oh, I forgot the Dudley Boys had a school. And as a matter of fact, I forgot that Devon's sons were in AEW. Why haven't they gone to NXT yet? I'm sure Devon's sons are. Figure 4 Online has a list of them. I'll take a look. Yeah, that Icelandic market, the Dutch. Got to get that good Viking demographic. Valhalla awaits. Let's see. Why the hell would you have an Icelandic soccer player? Like, really? Why would you even sign that girl? What the fuck is she going to do anyway? I have no idea. But until I see her, maybe if I see her, she'll have like an athletic build or something. Okay. Now I'm looking at these people. There's a big guy. There's a couple of big guys. The girls are all about the same size. That guy looks like Bodie Hayward. I don't know who he is, but he looks like Bodie Hayward. Let's see. There's 15 of them. They got a list of their names, but they don't have pictures next to their names, which is what I was looking for. But I look like they misspelled some of these people's names too. Oh no, it's the same people. Okay. Leah Mitchell from Michigan State. She's a gymnast. Interesting. I'm just floored by this whole Icelandic soccer player. Like, where's it? I don't get it. They got a Haitian. They don't got no Jamaicans though. Nah. Unless it's just Chukwusum guy might be Jamaican. He might be like West Indian or something like that. But nah, I bet he's probably African. He's probably some kind of African. Let's see. Yeah, the African recruits, they've already started that. They've started that. What is it? Over the week, they got Apollo Crews over there in Nigeria doing it. That's crazy. Dude hasn't. He said he had been to Africa in like 14 years. No, that was Amos. It hadn't been to Africa in 14 years. It's crazy. He went home to Africa before going back on the road. That was great. He went back to Nigeria, I believe, after leaving Saudi Arabia. That fucking rules, man. That fucking rules. Guy hadn't been home in 15 years or some shit. So that turned out wonderful. It was a great little story. But I can't grade the PC class until I start seeing pictures of them. And we probably won't see these pictures. We won't see these people for like a year. I can just guarantee you right now, most of these people that I just looked at, these pictures of these people, I won't see them again for a year. You know, so we can pretty much just say goodbye to most of them, because we won't be seeing them until like fucking June or 2023 or something like that. They're not going to be anywhere ready, especially if they got no wrestling background. Most of them, you can forget it. The Icelandic soccer player or whatever the fuck, she's probably not going to see her. I can't wait to hear her accent and what kind of gimmick they're going to give her. She's probably going to be dressed like fucking Katara from Avatar or some shit like that. Where she going to come out of the igloo. That's so fucked up, because I know they got no igloos. But she's definitely gonna not toaster strudel. She's gonna have a yodeling gimmick. She's gonna have a clog and yodeling gimmick. Yodeling or some shit. And you're like, oh hell no. They killing this girl. They're gonna kill her life. You got enough fucking soccer players as it is. All the fucking UK guys are soccer players. Got enough. I don't understand why Austria, that's the yodeling shits. Or is it toaster strudel? You know, like really. Billie Kay's not the pregnant one, is she? The other one's pregnant, right? They did give Becky Lynch an Irish jig gimmick. They really did. That's hilarious. And then, you know, as people get offended by stupid stereotypes, nobody ever mentions it's the Irish jig gimmick. That shit was hilarious. And whenever I look back at it, I looked at it like, oh my God, what the fuck is she doing? I guess they tried to make something out of her being Irish. Oh yeah, Peyton Royce is the one who's pregnant. Okay. The one who said she was haunted by her own talent. Yeah, about that. Yeah, about that one. That's a mess. All right, man. It's been 2 hours. Is there any hope for Theory? The only hope is that people are going to forget about it, which is the only thing that people are hanging their hats on, is that in 2 or 3 years, nobody's going to remember it, which I can agree. In 2 or 3 years, people probably won't remember. You know, that's right now, it's the worst thing that could possibly happen to the fucking guy, because he was doing good. And then they took him off the track and threw him onto this fucking track. He went from being the train on the track to being a guy tied to the train tracks. So it ain't working out for him. The only hope is that in 2 years, people are not going to remember. Just like they hoped among hope that nobody will remember when they was embarrassing Randy Orton, or that John Cena was doing a goofy rap gimmick and all that kind of stuff. They hope people don't forget that shit. And then maybe when he's a superstar and he's main eventing all over the place, they'll bring it up in a funny promo, like, yeah, you want to cash in your money in the bank on the U.S. title again? And everybody could be like, ho, 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 that was so funny. I can't believe they got away with that. You know, that's our only hope, is that people are going to forget. You know, that's the WWE thing, though. Like, they will do dumb shit and then hope you forget it later. You know? And sometimes people do forget it. Like the whole Lashley sisters thing and Shelton Benjamin's mama. They do dumb shit all the time. And then people just kind of overlook it over time. It's like because it's so much other dumb shit happening that you tend to forget that dumb shit happened, and so you don't pay it no mind. And then next thing you know, the guy's in a great spot. Like Lashley today, you're like, yeah, that's great. You skip all over Lashley's sisters and that time where he was bending over and patting himself on the butt. You're like, The time he wore like what was that? He's wearing contacts at WrestleMania. That was weird. A lot of weird shit happened. And you're like, wait a minute. But they hope that a guy is around so long that you don't remember it. So and most of the time you don't remember. Unless they bring it up again for whatever reason. Usually they bring it up again as a way to sort of absolve them of it. Like it was a really bad idea. Like when Vince went out there and talked about how the Bailey "This Is Your Life" segment was really bad, but it wasn't her fault. So sometimes they do shit like that too. They'll come back and say, "Oh yeah, you're a really great talent. You've always been a great talent. This bad thing happened, but it wasn't your fault." Oh yeah, the Usos. They did the back shave stuff with the Usos, but they also used to do the haka. The Usos used to come out and do their little "What's up, whatever. They had half their faces painted. They were fat too at the time, compared to where they are now. They were fat, but nobody remember that shit. People forget. Stuff is always happening. People are always coming and going, and shit changes. So people forget stuff, and as long as people forget and forgive and get over it, then you can do weird shit. Like right now, nobody thinks about Bray Wyatt in that silly Hell in a Cell match with Seth Rollins. It was the worst thing possible because it was a Hell in a Cell match that ended in basically a disqualification or a referee stoppage or something like that. It was awful. But it doesn't really linger over his head anymore because of so much other stuff that they set the Fiend on fire. And then they did the whole thing with the blood and, Alexa Bliss and all that shit. That shit happened. So, like, there was so much stuff happening that you miss that this really bad thing occurred. But there's so much other shit that's happening. You don't pay that shit no attention anymore. And then if they fuck up somebody else even just as bad or worse over here, you pay more attention to that, and then you forget about what they did over here. Like they've done guys so dirty. They've done guys really dirty. But it probably went under the radar because they were doing somebody else something even worse. Vince would be fucking up something so bad over here. You forgot he punched a bunch of holes in the wall over here too. So you never really can tell. That's the only hope for theory is that people are going to be like, yeah, that was so dumb that we're not going to remember it in 2 years. We're not going to remember it in 6 months or whatever. But I always said I was going to get Triple H until WrestleMania, but that theory thing was so fucking dumb that I'm really just kind of like, bro, I don't even think you deserve that kind of a grace period, but I'm going to do it anyway because I said I was going to. So I'm gonna cut into him, but I ain't ready to just write him off yet. I want to see what he's going to do for WrestleMania. That's what I want to see. I want to see who he's going to pick to win the Royal Rumble. That's what I want to see. And if it's not somebody else, if it's not Cody or Big E, it's only two options. All right, that's it. Unless you have a super secret surprise that would blow my mind, The Rock or John Cena or something like that. Those are the only two options. If fucking Kevin Owens wins the Royal Rumble, I'm gonna pitch a bitch. All right. Fucking Johnny Gargano, I'm gonna throw something. All right. So that's gonna be that's gonna be the ultimate test. I'm already not thrilled about War Games because I don't like the War Games match. I'm not thrilled about the fucking Money in the Bank thing. I hate that. But the shows are better week to week. And I'm really looking at it like, okay, the shows are better week to week to a degree. They're a little bit more boring because they're just wrestling matches and there's no outlandish character stuff really happening, and that's really my jam. I would rather you do outlandish character stuff than have a 15-minute match. I really would. You know, I would rather you just set somebody on fire. Fuck it. That's the kind of shit that gets my attention. You know, it's the kind of shit that get my juices flowing. You know, wrestling matches, when you have so many of them, like if you have a 2-hour show, you should probably have 5 matches. That's it. When you try to squeeze 7 on that motherfucker, you're getting on my nerves. Because one of those matches is going to be long. And the other one's probably going to be short. So you're probably better off not doing the short one and just doing something else. And that's always my thing. You know, and I don't mean like fewer wrestling matches the better. What I mean is quality over quantity. I don't need there to be 14 fucking matches on the show. All right? Get 4 good ones. Let's rock with the 4 good ones. At least 2 of the 4 should have storylines going in. Maybe one of them has a storyline coming out, but at least have some storyline element into all the matches that are going to be on your show and pay off some stuff or build something next, plant some seeds or whatever. Not every chapter needs to pay off something, but you can't let things linger for so long. Like the lack of emphasis on storytelling really fucked over The Miz and Dexter Lumis. They waited so long to start telling the story that there was no response that they could give you that was going to be satisfactory. That's the problem with mysteries. If you wait too long to reveal the mystery, then nothing you say will be satisfactory. You know, it's like who's going to be the third man in not Halloween Havoc, but Bash at the Beach. You expect Bash at the Beach is going to be the thing that's going to tell you the answer to that question. If you skip through Bash at the Beach and say, well, we'll answer it some other time, people are not going to care anymore. You know? And once that happens, you know, you're dead in the water. You got no choice really but to pay things off in a decent amount of time in order for it to make sense to the person who is following the story. You know? So even though I like The Miz and Dexter Lumis, I like the angle, they just took too long to get here. You know? It took way too long to get here. And obviously there was no story and no plan when they started it. That's why it took it so long for us to get here. And look, I'm a person who writes, right? I write stories. And I know that if I take too long to get to the next thing, it's because I didn't know what that thing was. You know, I just sat down and I started freeballing it. And when you do that, you come up with some really creative shit. But it may take you more words than you needed to get there. It may take you more chapters than it needed to get there. And that's when editing comes in. Just when you start saying, okay, this is where I wanted to get to. I needed to get here faster. So then you try to cut and paste this whole part, move it to another part, or you just shave off everything in between. You know, you just need to quicken the pace. And Triple H needed that. Hurt Business 2.0, I'm interested in that. I'm interested in that. I want them to put a new spin on it, though. I don't want it to be the same guys. I want to put something new in it. Like, if you're going to reform it, okay, let's reform it, but let's do something new, too. Let's add something, you know? So, I'm not sure what that could be in terms of what to add, but I think you need to add something. Like, Lashley, Shelton, and Cedric, that's good. Yeah, you probably need to add a young boy. Now, what would it be? Carmelo Hayes? I probably wouldn't do that. But it needs to be because Cedric can't fit the. He's not going to be the Randy Orton of your group anymore. That's just dead. That's not going to work. He's going to be Shelton's tag team partner. So you probably do need like a Carmelo Hayes or somebody else, to take the young boy spot, to be the young Randy Orton of the group. To be the Rocky Maivia of the group. That's what you need. That's what they're missing. They need that young boy energy. Somebody out there that's like a rapper or something, like Future or something like that. Somebody with some vision that they could put all of their interest into and launch him forward. Because Lashley is 46. Like all these guys are old. All these guys are fucking old. So it's time to start launching somebody. And I don't want to throw Trick and Carmelo in there. Their gimmick don't even fit. So I wouldn't even put him in the group because he don't fit. I wouldn't do that. I would put Carmelo with MVP though. I think that's great. Carmelo and MVP could be real dope. The problem is I think MVP is bigger than Carmelo. I think he is. And I know Trick is too, sure. But I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put Carmelo in that situation. He's good. I wouldn't put him in that shadow. Montez Ford, I don't think he could pull it off. I don't think he's serious enough. Trick Williams? Yeah. Trick Williams could work. He's been mostly a comedy guy though. Like he has so much personality that I think that he could work in the Hurt Business. Like Trick, I wouldn't want to split up Trick and Mello. I really wouldn't, but I could definitely see Trick being in the Hurt Business. Being the young dude in the group who talk too much. He's fly. He'll beat your ass. Yeah. Yeah. I like Trick Williams in the Hurt Business. Yeah, that works. But the issue is what the fuck you do with Carmelo Hayes at that point. I mean, Trick is an important part of his act. It's an important part of his gimmick, important part of his character. I don't know. I don't know what you do with him at that point. But Trick in the Hurt Business, yeah, that rules. That's good. I would consider bringing back Leo Rush because I like Leo Rush and he can cut promos. He's painfully tiny though. Like he's very tiny. But I think that he can add something. If you were to put Leo Rush in the Hurt Business, he would be the Butch of Hurt Business. Like the little guy who talks big, constantly running away and scrappy and all that kind of stuff. It probably could work. Trick is sexual chocolate. Odyssey Jones. Odyssey Jones could work too. In the Hurt Business, he need that mean streak. Now I like Odyssey Jones and MVP. I like that too. I like that too. MVP can really elevate a lot of people though. Like really. Yeah. Yeah, he can really elevate quite a few people. Odyssey Jones is a guy, he needs an edge. He needs like a something. Glorious Bobby Roode is coming back, and Grimes is going to be called up. I think Glorious Bobby Roode was already back. He was already doing house shows and stuff with the Glorious gimmick. Cameron Grimes is about to just fill in the mid-card spot. That's all. Now they're not gonna put him with Corbin and JBL. I don't see it. He's just going to be there. Yeah, I like Idris Enofe. I like him. I like Malik Blade too. They're two young guys. They look great. They have good personalities. I like both of those dudes. I wouldn't put either one of them in the Hurt Business though. I just don't think it works. Yeah, I know that he was hurt. He was doing things on house shows before he got hurt. Cedric Alexander was pretty much jobbed out, so no, he was not raised from being in the Hurt Business. You know, he's not really. That was Vince booking though. Vince was shits with that. You know, that was the shits. The Hurt Business had such a great potential, and it didn't last long enough. I understand why they got rid of it, but it was dumb as fuck. Malik Blade was trained by Devon. Hmm, interesting. That's not too bad. He's a very talented young man. I just wish he would fill out a little bit. Um, that's all. No, Apollo. Primetime Cedric. um, yeah, you can't put non-threatening guys like Malik Blade in there. He's too goofy looking. You know, he looks like a nerd. It's okay to have like nerdy black dudes too. Apollo Crews would have killed in the Hurt Business though. He'd have been good. I don't want to put him in there now though. I think that he's been, you know, I don't know, man. He's been doing quantum leap gimmicks and all kind of shit. I don't understand. You know, so I don't know if I really want to, you know, fuck with that. He definitely needs some help. Like I definitely want the Hurt Business back, but I want you to put a new spin on it. I want something different. You know, something that's gonna elevate somebody younger. Because it was great to get Lashley to where he needed to be, but now that Lashley is on that level, the next iteration of the Hurt Business has to be for somebody else. You know, because Lashley is again he's 45, 46 years old. I mean, enough's enough. We can only count on him to be around for another 2 years. I don't think anybody actually took Reginald seriously. You know, I would send him to NXT, but I haven't seen him in months since the whole thing with Nia Jax ended. Has he been on TV since Nia Jax left? He probably was in some backstage segments. Cause I was about to say, didn't he do a love angle with Tamina? But I think that was Akira Tozawa. That was all funny shit, by the way. That was all funny shit. I have no idea what Reginald is. They changed his name to Reggie, and then he disappeared off the face of the earth. So maybe he got hurt. I don't know. But that guy is a crazy athlete. I would put him in a tag team if I was going to use him. I would use him. I would put him in a tag team. Powerhouse Hobbs is perfect for the Hurt Business. He'd be perfect. But he's in the wrong company. He's in a company that don't give a fuck about that stuff. He's in a work rate company. And they're going to just have him do flippity doodads. And that's not going to work out. It says, you don't like Dijak, but his character is now Judge Dredd. He'll never be as cool as Judge Dredd. So don't ever say that. Oh, he was in an angle with Dana Brooke. Yes, you're right. Yeah, it was Reggie and Dana Brooke. Oh God, that was awful. He was trying to. Yeah, he ended up petting her, take the title from her because he was. Just... that was goofy as hell. Yeah, but he hasn't. There was a time there when Reginald was really getting pushed, and he had that match with Sasha Banks. I thought, like, okay, they for sure about to do something with this guy. But and his accent disappeared. And there's another one, black guy with an accent. They were like, "Where your accent go?" Yeah, I mean, Triple H's WWE is work rate as fuck. I can't stand it. I hate it. You got to have a handful of work rate guys, but you can't have too many. Triple H got way too many. You know, he got way too many. Like Gunther could be your work rate guy for SmackDown. You know, Sheamus can be one of those guys. You know, you can have a couple of them, but you need to have more characters than work rate dudes. And now it's like work rate guys all up and down the card, dudes just working too much. It's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. Fucking Otis having long matches. It's stupid. Would I want Keith Lee back, Malachi Black, or Swerve? If I had to have a choice of those three, Swerve is probably the youngest of the bunch. He's also probably the least injury prone of the bunch, but he's also the most committed to AEW, I think. So I probably would take Malachi Black. Keith Lee, he's just gained too much weight. As much as I like the guy, I really do, but I don't think that he can really keep up with your main event guys anymore. You know, I just don't think so. You know, I just don't think he can work out. I don't think Keith Lee can keep up with your top guys. And Swerve probably is too skinny and too small. So I would probably go with Malachi Black because at least he got a great gimmick. Fuck cruiserweights. Oh my goodness. Now, why would we do that? I think they should be unfucked. Yeah, I would see. The thing is, if you have nothing for somebody to do and you don't want to fire them, just put them in a tag team. That's what I would do. You need tag teams, you know. I would put Red on a tag team. You could put him in like a high flying ass tag team, you know. Him and Ricochet or something like that might actually work out as a tag team. It might be really good. You know, you never know. Try it out. Let's see what happens. You know, what's the worst that could happen? He eats up some more TV time, and he's already ate up enough. You know, no, there's no saving Hit Row, dog. It's over with. Hit Row is dead. That shit dead. And why would you want to save Top Dollar? I saw that he said he lost some weight, which is good. That's great. I'm glad that he lost some weight. Now, if he only was less of a douchebag, you know, it might actually be helped. I don't understand why everybody wants Bo Dallas back. Bo Dallas was funny, but it was never a main event gimmick. It was always mid card. It just seemed like a big deal in NXT because he was one of the few people down there that had gimmick, a big time gimmick. It was really over. But putting the belt on Bo Dallas was a mistake. But the inspirational gimmick was funny as shit. I will say that. I will say that. I will give him credit for being entertaining. He was very, very entertaining. Okay. It's been 2 hours and 30 minutes. Unless we got some more stuff, we start wrapping it up. So what you guys got? Top Dollar might get repackaged. Yeah, right. B Fab is the most useless member of the group. She looks great though. I just wish she could branch out and do something else. Her looking like what was Shanae's friend from Martin with the big dookie braids, or the Poetic Justice and shit like that. Like if she could change her look up some, you know, maybe upgrade her look, it could help. Reginald and Ashanti Theodonis. Oh, okay, that could work. I like Ashanti Theodonis. I don't like Top Dollar is the only one I really don't like. B Fab is I would change her look and her name. Her name sucks. But I would definitely change her look and name. Maybe change up her character a little bit. Um, but Top Dollar, I don't know, man. I just don't like the guy. I'm just gonna hold you up. I don't like the guy. But Ashanti Theodonis is okay. I didn't mind him. But Hit Row is dead in the water, bro. They just don't. They got nothing going. Yo-Yo the rapper. Oh yeah, whatever. Yo-Yo my ass. Oh, you talking about Baby D Yo-Yo? Can't play with my yo-yo. Oh God, what the fuck? Yeah, I don't know about this one. All right, y'all. I'll see you guys live on Sunday. I still don't know what the focus of that stream will be. Depends on whether I go see Black Panther or not, which I probably won't. If not, then I may definitely go see it next week. I really ain't got no reason to not go see it, other than really I don't give a fuck. People were feeling bad all over for Theory, for Ali over Theory. Look, there's this politics, man. People feel bad for Ali because they think Ali always getting done dirty. Which is true, but they never understand that Ali deserves it. You know, he sucks. He's just a boring flippity guy. Who do I think is the script faction? Well, I don't think it's a faction. I think it's probably two people at best. And I think it's two people who are already in NXT before. You know, if I had to guess, I would probably say it's probably Bo Dallas and somebody else. I'm gonna go with that. That's just off the top of my head, but we'll see who Scripps is probably once Braun Breaker is free of any contenders. All of a sudden, he'll have to fight this fucking guy. Don, yeah, which is more likely, Kofi Kingston heel turn or Big E Royal Rumble return week? If I had to guess, I would say it's probably more likely for Kofi Kingston to turn heel. You know, I think a heel New Day is probably overdue. If we're being honest, they've been babyfaces for so long. I think they need to separate. You know, like I think the ultimate New Day versus Usos match needs to be the loser breaks up, and that to me would put a fine point on their feud. Their best of 501. You know, the team that loses has to dissolve, and then the Usos beats the New Day, and the New Day can never team up again. That would be great. Or shock the world and have the Usos lose, and then WWE is forced to put Jimmy and Jay on two different shows. And so Jay can finally get to be the star that he's supposed to be. Oh, for fuck's sake, if Scripps is fucking NXT UK, guys, man, I am going to fucking cry. I'm telling you, I'm going to cry. I'm going to get on this motherfucker and weep if these NXT UK guys. And the worst thing about it is, I saw the I wouldn't know who it would be. So many people got released from NXT UK. I have no idea, no earthly idea who it would be. It would have to be a female, but it has a male voice, so I don't know. They didn't release all the women. They cut a lot of the women, but they didn't release all of them. Stevie Turner, I think, is still on the roster. Isla Dawn, Ava Valkyrie, Jenny, they're all still there. As far as the men go, I think it was Rampage Brown. He didn't get cut. I think he got hurt, so he's still on the roster. I think he's the only one who hasn't shown up yet that didn't get cut. So I don't know, man. I hope it's not NXT. I can't believe you poisoned me by saying that shit, man. It better not be nobody from NXT UK, man. God, that would suck so bad. It would suck so bad if it was fucking Eddie Dennis or something like that came out and called it some scripts. I'd be like, oh, hell no, man. Hell no. Get the fuck out of here. Get out of here. I don't think Sami Zayn is going to win a world title. And I don't think he needs it. At this point, he doesn't have the physique, the body type. It's not believable that he would beat Roman Reigns. I don't see it. Now you could always craft a story where he could win a title in a ladder match or something like that, and he wouldn't have to beat anybody. But I don't think he needs it. I think Sami Zayn is one of those guys. He could go his entire career without ever winning a world title, and people would still be happy with his career. You know, and I think he would be happy with his career if he never won a world title. You know, you just run the risk of ruining it and fucking it up. You know, now it probably would be a one of those Cinderella stories that people love so much, as with him being like sort of the new Daniel Bryan. But that would depend on how you felt about Daniel Bryan being the world champion. How did you feel about that? A lot of people were very excited. I liked it. I liked Daniel Bryan as world champion. I thought it was great. But for some reason, I just don't see it the same way with Sami Zayn. You know, I just don't see it the same way. All right. Thank you guys for your time. Like, share, subscribe. Next time, I'm going to remember to unmute the video. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out, bruh.